welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and this is a bonus video, my Knights of the Round Table preview. Knights of the Round Table, or Knights as I'll be abbreviating them, are a new promo faction that are due out this week at the AEG store. And no, I don't mean those Knights. These Knights have a questing mechanic represented by base modifiers. You want to move to the base modifier to meet the criteria of the card and gain additional VP. Thus, the Knights are an interesting mix of base modifiers, movement, and VP addition. And so that no one accuses me of failing to follow up on previous videos, this is the Change Up Venue faction because they also have some useful minion modifiers. It would be easy to think of the Knights as a VP farming faction. It would also be wrong. The Knights, in my opinion, focus on trying to gain additional VP in service of breaking a base, not instead of it, because they power creep severely hard. They have a vigilante-style structure with 7 unique minions instead of the usual 12-card designs. Their leader is obviously King Arthur, the only minion who has 5 power, whereas everyone else is a 4. King Arthur has the ability to move another minion to his base, granting a power counter if you have a base modifier there. This card neatly sums up what the faction is trying to do: play base modifiers, move to them, and trigger benefits. So how do we break down the faction further? We have to look at each part independently. Let's start with the quests. The Knights can gain 5 VP from their modifiers, and Excalibur is the only minion modifier, but it requires King Arthur. The quests are varied in what they require for completion, but you may see a quest be its own trigger. For example, the Green Knight grants a power counter on the move, and wants the minion to be 7 power, so you can mix and match different minions to find the fastest route to the quest. For example, Lancelot gets a power counter when moved to a base with a base modifier, so Lancelot needs to only be a 5, because he can get 2 counters if you trigger him first. The Green Knight is also an example of power creeping hard, because that's a 7 power minion hanging around, so it's best to break the base while completing the quest. The Holy Grail is another example. You need 3 minions of 4 power or more for a sizable 2 VP, but that's also 12 power. If you don't win that base then, you are practically giving it away, unless you can move off immediately, which is easier said than done. It feels like this faction has more movement than it actually does, which leaves room for synergy from your partner. Of the minions, only Percival can actually move itself. King Arthur and Guinevere can summon or send minions where they need to go, but most of their movement comes from their double-featured noble steed. They still have other ways of creating movement, but this is their purest form of simple, repeatable movement. With the Knights, you want as much movement as possible because you can trigger their base modifier benefits and move off at the same time. This is well reflected in their other double feature, Good Deed. Good Deed allows you to draw a card after one or more of your minions moves there, but it breaks Bandit Rule number 11, where it draws attention to its own limitations, in that you can't use both Good Deeds each turn. This wouldn't necessarily be a problem if it did not give you a card right away, which some of my contacts describe as being really necessary, but to me it sends mixed messages, which I'll talk about later. Regardless, the ability to draw cards is very crucial for this faction because of how they approach questing, and it's not what you think. Excalibur wants to be on King Arthur. That's a 2-card combo, one that, outside of Change of Venue, you would hold on to at the last moment. But consider the Green Knight, which wants 7. If you move Lancelot there, he becomes a 6, and has not yet triggered the quest. That means there is an extra incentive to rush the base because you have a decent amount of power creep and a VP card that can be wasted. Yet the Green Knight is also the card that is granting the power it wants in the first place. Fortunately, there are other means, like the Questing Beast. The Questing Beast grants the same power counter, but moves every time, so it's harder to rush it off the board. That takes a lot of pressure off your quest cards to do the heavy lifting, so you can actually do the questing in your hand, so to speak. Setting up the quest by staging your hand and play area and only playing the quest when the time is right. Similarly, you can use Good Deed to put yourself in a position for another quest. I would have thought that this felt gimmicky, but because of the power creep it really doesn't, and the Knights suffer from having a really narrow board. Despite having some very flexible plays in base modifiers, the timing has to matter, and it can be an interesting challenge to make sure you use all your plays. You can play a quest early simply because of opportunity cost, but it's telegraphing a bit and creating risk if it's a power-based quest. That being said, there is the Grail, which has to be played on a base with none of your base modifiers. The Grail requires 3 minions of power 4 or more, which puts you well on your way to winning that base. I personally found the Grail to be fairly easy to complete with a couple of internal options, made easier by the fact that every Knight card qualifies. You can play the Holy Grail on an empty base from your perspective, one with a decent bit of aggro. This will help you to complete the quest and win the base on the following turn. With King Arthur, Merlin's Library, and any 4, you can play King Arthur for 5, play Merlin's Library, play the other 4, use King Arthur to move the 4 over, and you just added 14 power and got 2 VP. That can be a significant swing on a low breakpoint base. Another way to get the Grail is to have a mobile Merlin in play. With the Grail in hand, play it, then play Galahad to search for Merlin's Library to place it on top of your deck. Merlin can play his Library, which gives you the extra minion play, then Merlin can move over to get the Grail, and the same effect occurs. On top of that, you get to keep Merlin's Library in play, which is really their only burst card since everything else is movement. This faction necessitates spreading out because of their high power. If you compare them to the Vigilantes, they have much more engine potential. The Vigilantes can afford to be rushed off the base, but they also have the minion removal that the Knights lack, which exacerbates the Knight power creep issues. I don't have perfect numbers on this, but my games with King Arthur have been on the shorter turn side because of their VP in service of breaking bases. I don't complete every quest, but I use them as aggro to try and either force undesirable bases off the board or try to complete multiple quests in a turn. By trying to edge out that extra 2 VP per game, it's proven to be the difference that allows Knights to be extremely strong. As usual, once the faction started getting spoilers, the usual culprits in terms of partners started popping up, but there are a few I wanted to call out specifically. First, this is a very good werewolf pairing without their Titan. Yes, because Titans are optional, and they really don't need it. I actually haven't tried them with the Titan out of fear that they would jump to insane. Literally, a Howler can complete the Green Knight with the extra power. But enough about that. Each werewolf and knight can reach 4 power, good for Frenzy, and even better for the Holy Grail. In fact, I was able to pull off a rare play where a teenage wolf and 2 howlers got the Grail. And this is great because I didn't break the base that turn, and I only left 7 power on the base. But the interesting takeaway is that if I could break the base, I'd do so using my bottom tier cards only. The werewolves love the naturally higher power and movement for both marking territory and leader of the pack. Galahad and marking territory is extremely strong. The werewolves give the knights power-based destruction, which really helps their power creep and gives them more time. They give knights some needed extra actions and even more card draw. Their cards line up so well together that the Great Wolf Spirit is an unnecessary afterthought. If you want to combine 2 standalone factions, All-Star Knights are extremely strong, and I think I prefer them to Shapeshifter Knights. You still have Gelf, who can get you any Knight 4, but their utility actions really benefit the Knights. The All-Star Action Recursion can have you instantly repeat a quest you just completed if you have another movement. They make completing the Grail a joke. The typical non-infinite loop, It's Astounding Ghostly Arrival, gives you 3 minion plays and an action, which can be the Grail, for an easy 12 power and 2 VP, if one of those minions is Percival. However, with the All-Stars, this can be much higher if you select Lancelot, King Arthur, and King Rex. This actually becomes an instant 18 power because King Arthur can move over Lancelot, create 2 counters, and complete the Grail. But my preferred play is actually King Arthur, King Rex, and Puck. You have the exact same setup, and Puck is played on another base, but Puck plays an extra action. That extra action is Excalibur. That's still 18 power, but potentially 3 VP at the same time. And you still have your regular minion play in order to make it even more. This does take a lot of cards, but these factions have insane card draw and can immediately regenerate with Square Deal, making me once again wonder if the All-Stars are broken if they hit their ceiling. Granny lets you know what will happen with Merlin. Even their minor cards like Full Moon and Lab Assistant fit into their strategy. The overall deck filtering of the All-Stars makes the in-hand questing very easy, but on top of everything, you get a very small base deck, and both Knight bases really benefit their faction, which is just another advantage. For my next pairing, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, I actually like adding more bases with the Polynesian Voyagers in this context. The combination of power creep and narrow playing field makes extra bases surprisingly desirable. In addition, their cards line up well beyond the fact that it gives the Polynesian Voyagers more self-corrective movement. Having Tiki be a mobile 5 power is certainly valuable, especially for the Grail, and Moai takes away movement that can potentially rush a base with a quest. But it's the Wayfinder who really shines. Wayfinder can complete the Green Knight on turn 2. Sun Tattoo guarantees that any Knight can complete the Green Knight after scoring. Knights have minion modifiers that work well with Tattoo Artist. The lower quantity of minions makes Shark Tattoo more effective. The Polynesian Voyagers tend to be slower, but this combination felt really fast, and I used every opportunity to add more bases because it gave the Knights more breathing room. My final combo was probably my favorite because it uses a faction I really like, Cyborg Apes. Noble Steed is pretty perfect for Baboom, giving knights a form of extra actions while also giving cyborg apes mobility. When the time comes, Cyber Evolution and the Green Knight makes the mobile Baboom complete the quest, but making Baboom mobile let me get as many as 6 actions on it for juiced up. Baboom can move to a good deed in the same turn to really start going through your deck quickly. The extra power counters of the questing beast were great for Flying Monkey. In fact, I was able to reach the questing beast twice in the same turn to make up for the loss of power from Flying Monkey destroying itself after scoring. With the Green Knight and a double score, I was up to 5 EP to start a game in very few turns. Because of Clyde 2.0, I was able to use Excalibur on Baboom for just a free 2 power, knowing I get it back for an eventual King Arthur. That never happened though, because I never needed it. But in the moment, the idea of getting back my noble steeds was very welcome. You have extra actions for Monkey See, Monkey Do. You have great non-terminal plays to play with Merlin. This combo felt so great, and I don't even think I hit their ceiling, so try it out and let me know. After the anti-bandit randomness of goblins, the knights feel like a faction where I'm much more in control of my destiny. My personal experience, though less significant than the playtesters, has been that they are extremely strong with a very high ceiling, but I can also see the power creep being misplayed. I do question the existence of some of their micro buffs, which I would assume has to do with balancing in multiplayer. Does Good Deed, a double feature, really need the initial card draw? That makes it aid from allies when it should be weaker as a double feature. Guinevere and Galahad seem to have tacked on abilities that I wonder if they are truly necessary, since they mostly counter their counters. I just get a vibe of mixed messages in their cards, with some fairly obvious nerfs that imply a high ceiling. However, I do like that they benefit moving multiple times per turn, like I wanted the ultimates to be. It's nice to see a class that fully leans into the idea of movement momentum and moving as many times as possible in a turn. Are you excited for the Knights of the Round Table? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.